or 15 years where we don't need a lot of musicians, we don't really need a lot of actors, we either don't need a lot or aren't paying laborers much, fast food workers. Like, what are people eventually going to turn to? Like, what are people going to start doing for money or to benefit society or whatever people are supposed to do with their lives?
Unfortunately, you're probably gonna have to get a real job and
Like what though? Like,
still do it on the
what does
side.
that even look like nowadays?
uh, a real job. When I think of a real job, I think of like a dude that goes to work because he knows it feeds his family. You know, that's what I think of. You know, a real job is like me in the military right now. Like, you know, I'm trying my best to keep my creative juices flowing, but at the same time, I got to survive. I need this paycheck. You know,
Hmm.
I need this. I need all these benefits and rewarding opportunities that I need to earn, and I am earning them. So, um, I don't know, man. I know for sure. Like, no matter what happens in the future, as scary as it is, I think I'm going to be acting till I die.
Yeah.
I already found. I already found the thing. Um, there's absolutely nothing that makes me happier. When I talk about acting, it's like somebody gave me 20 cups of coffee, and like I could talk about that for days. Like, you could not shut me up about it. You're gonna have to tell me, okay, let's change the subject or something, you know. And acting, it's to me, it's just the coolest thing in the whole fucking world. Like, there's absolutely nothing that draws my attention more. As far as like getting a real job, there's actually a quote I wanted to bring up today, and it's most men live lives of silent desperation. I think this was his last name is Thoreau, Henry Thoreau, I think is his name. But this quote, most men live lives of silent desperation. It's about following your passions and finding your passion. And I think what this quote means is that when you have to find a real job and you have to support that family you weren't prepared for, you become the provider, you know, which isn't a terrible thing. You know, it's not the end of the world, but I think what this quote is talking about is the man that goes to work every day and he's just dreading it. You know, he's thinking like, fuck, I got to be here for another 12 hours doing this fucking, I don't know, Toyota plant job where it's a bunch of heavy labor and I don't even get paid enough to do this shit. And my boss is a dick and they want me to do this and do that longer. And, you know, I don't, or they have a job where they have to work multiple jobs because nobody's paying them enough. They're not qualified enough. They don't have the experience and they don't have the education. But at the same time, the job won't hire you unless you have the experience or the education. And then there's this weird loophole. Like, where do you even go to get these things? You know, I'm sure you just as much as me can point out probably 10 people off the top of your head and count them off with your fingers and say, oh, this person is living a life of, you know, silent desperation.
Hmm.
He never had that opportunity to follow his dreams, find the passion. Some people don't even try. I mean, there's so many people I know that always complain like, oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but you don't even fucking try, man. You don't even try. Like, when's the last time you even tried to do something? Why don't you just take a something, a class you're interested in? I mean, I do it all the time. I mean, I didn't know how to play guitar till about, I didn't even own one till I had like about 8 months ago. I have 4 guitars in my room right now, you know, and I spend 2 or 3 hours a day on it. Does it mean I'm going to be a fucking rock star? No, not at all. But now, because I've opened this opportunity for myself, I found a group of dudes that love to play music together. And it is probably one of the most badass, like, little experiences I have on a weekend. You know, I go to my buddy's house. There's like 4 of us in there. There's a drum set. There's a microphone. There's the bass and the guitar and these concert amps. And all of us get together and we're so fucking pumped up. And man, this would never have happened if I just didn't pick up the guitar 8 months ago.
Right.
This made a whole new life experience for myself just because I tried, you know? And it was that easy. I tried. So now I get to fucking rock out. I get like a bottle of Patron. I make all these really close friends. I'm out here playing, Rage Against the Machine, and I'm screaming in the microphone, drunk as fuck, like "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me," or "we got the funk," and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. I just do it, and I
Mm.
think a lot of people, you're gonna end up being that man that lives a life of silent desperation if you don't just fucking try. Women too. I know this says men in the quote, but women, you got to do some cool shit too. That's
Absolutely.
all I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
say.
mean, you and I have talked about that before with that sometimes it seems like society cheats women out of that far more than it does men. About every man who's out there living a life of silent desperation, there's the woman who got pregnant at 16, or that they were taught this, they were told that, and they like, man, they have it worse than we do in that regard, for sure. But I know with Thoreau, I don't think, from what I know about him, that he would be opposed to silence as a way of being. At least, I think he would think silence has a place in a person's life.
No, this quote isn't about silence. It's about men that are they're living these lives that there's no way out. There's no
Mm-hmm.
way to say I fucked up. I didn't mean to have this family. I there's still so many things I haven't accomplished, and it's talking about how men in this situation can't just express that because it's not right, because they have all these responsibilities and all these things that are that they have to take care of, priorities. And I think what he's talking about is instead of bearing down all these heavy priorities and responsibilities on yourself and creating this what seems like a hole, instead you should try to live your life finding those things you're passionate about, what makes you happy. Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about all the time. What makes you happy. He There's a cool quote he has. It's like in one of his, I think it's like 7 rules to success or something like that. Um, there's one of them where he's always asking, "Who do you want to be? Not what, but who. Who do you want to be?" You need to start asking yourselves these kinds of questions and start envisioning what you want. And I always thought that was really cool. He would always talk about closing his eyes and seeing himself on stage and doing these poses correctly, and putting in all of this work where all of his body was to be as proportionate and as perfect as possible. And he was always talking about vision and finding what makes him happy. He found it. He even mentioned one time that yes, bodybuilding is strange, right? It's like it's this weird, like you go up on stage and you're like in a speedo and you let people judge you by how much you worked out or look. Like it's a strange competition. But he also said, race car driving is strange to me. So I mean, but that person loves it, and I can respect it. Like, damn, like it probably takes a lot of time and commitment and all kinds of science to be able to drive a car, 200 miles an hour,
Mm-hmm.
going, God knows how fast. So I think that quote is about men and women finding um, just what makes them happy.
So, do you think that's something, once you're stuck in that position of silent desperation, can you get out? Or is it a cautionary thing of you just got to do your level best to not get in that position in the first place?
I guess you'd really have to come to what this is an old saying, come to Jesus with yourself, right? Uh, do you know that you're unhappy? Do you know that you are living a life of silent desperation? Some men, I know a buddy of mine that's completely content and happy with having a family and just supporting him, and that's what he loves to do. He just wants to be a dad. He loves it. He has no problem doing all of that. Um, some people just want that, but I think for the men, for example, my dad, I think my dad is one of those. My dad's passed away a long time ago, but I think my dad was probably one of those guys that was very scared and very unprepared to be a dad. You know, he was probably living a life of silent desperation. I think, especially when I was growing up as a kid, we were very poor, and I don't think my dad was proud of me waking up with him in the morning, getting ready for school, he going to work. And my breakfast, man, I mean, we were poor. My breakfast was cornflakes and water. And he had a cardboard box with a cloth over it. That was my table. And when I think of that, my dad before he had me, my dad wanted to be a musician and he wanted to be an actor and he was a triathlete and he had all these crazy hobbies and things that he was into, and he was just a wild guy. I remember talking to his friends after he had died, and they were just like, "Dude, you were just like your dad. I don't understand. Like you just have that instinct to just be curious and just do whatever the fuck you want to do, you know?"
Mhm.
And and I see that and I recognize it, and I think to myself, man, like my dad had me at 26. I'm 26 now, and taking that third person point of view, I can see why my dad was probably as angry and as frustrated all the time as he was. And it's because he was one of those men, I think. He was living a life of silent desperation.
If you like what you're talking about in the acting sphere, the movie Field of Dreams, Kevin
Yeah.
Costner, have you seen it?
No,
It's
I'll write it down though.
it's all about that theme, man. It's literally the movie starts off with a sort of montage where he's talking about his dad who's passed away, and he says, kind of like his dad wanted to be a baseball player, and this was set back in the '70s or something, and he says like his dad by the time he had him was already old, kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
that's a really good movie. It's kind of a it's become more popular than it was when it was first released. That I think if you want to look at the way that subject is examined it with some serious acting, it's good.
Rock on. Yeah, I wrote it down. I got it.
And in terms of avoiding getting in that position,
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with, like you said, this that having vision, knowing the person that you want to be, and having the balls, let's say no to every opportunity that comes your way that isn't that, or at least that doesn't help get you closer to that in some way, right? And so there are a lot of people that I think society might look at and think, geez, man, what are you doing? You're a loser. Why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z? But what they don't see is that person they see themselves way down the road, and somebody comes and says, hey, I'll pay you $90,000 a year to go be a basket salesman. They're like, well, no, basket sales isn't my thing. No thanks. Why are you still working at Starbucks? You could be making $90,000 a year as a basket salesman. Does that mean you want to be working at Starbucks? Well, no, but they say, well, because I'm working at Starbucks part time, and then that gives me the free time to. Hell, Einstein, right? Einstein worked at a patent office, right, before
Mm.
while he was working on some of his life changing things. So but it takes
Yeah.
a lot of courage to say no when the success is distant and not assured, right?
Yeah. I think there's another quote that I think is tying into this now. I have it on my little water bottle I carry everywhere because I believe in it so much. But it is luck is when preparation meets opportunity, and I think a lot of that luck is kind of perceived as like this thing that just magically happens. You happen to stumble upon, something, and it just magically happened that, oh, you're lucky. You won the lottery, or you won. I don't know. You found a dollar bill on the floor. Or, oh, you got lucky. You got laid tonight. Stuff like that. And I think luck is a bit. There's a lot more to luck, I think, than just something randomly happening to you. Luck to me um, is definitely what this quote is. It's being prepared. You know, let's say that I was walking down the street and I was dressed nice. I was presentable. Um, I had the intention of being social. Having having all of these things together. Today I got up and I did all, I crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's. What would happen if I looked like a fucking slob? And I walked around one day and there happens to be a director. He's right there, and somebody mentions, "Hey, did you know that my buddy Chris, he's an actor?" And here I am looking awful. I've got sweatpants on, didn't shower, just decided not to wash my face, just all of that may be like a bad luck, scenario, thinking to yourself, "Oh my God, bad luck. I woke up and I wasn't prepared. I didn't take care of myself." You know? But the good luck part of it, right, is that you're prepared, and this opportunity came by, and fuck, you were ready. And the other part of it too, you probably the directors that are like in this area, right, Tucson, and you're like, "Oh, I know what he's done. You know, I know the work he's done, and I've been prepared. I've been wanting to talk to all these directors. I was prepared. I knew that, he's around, and I should have been interested in who he is, and let him know how excited I am to be a part of this community." That's all part of luck, I think, and that goes hand in hand with finding what you like to do and your passions.
For sure. Every time this notion comes up of what you're talking about with preparation and the way we see the connection between preparation and luck, the metaphor to me is always fishing. And this idea of you go out on a boat to a certain spot and you have a certain bait and you're doing all of these things in a very precise way, but you don't know if you're going to catch a fish. Maybe you go home empty handed. Maybe you catch a big one. Maybe you catch a small one. That's luck, right? But you didn't just like pray. You didn't dance around in a circle and pray that a fish would fall from the sky. There's like this very lengthy procedure, very specific rules to maximize the chance that a fish bites the hook on the end of your rope, right?
Right. And that's a part of being self-disciplined, man. I mean, if you don't have that and you don't develop that, you're always going to think, "Oh, I just have bad luck." I bullshit.
So
There's so many things that you could do to make things better in your life if you just tried.
there's an inexorable connection then between discipline and luck, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's like
Yeah.
in Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. It starts off, there was an old man. He fished alone in a skiff, and it'd been like 400 something days since he had caught a fish. And everyone in the village said he was the worst form of unlucky because every day he was just going out, and every day he would come home empty handed and see all the other sailors coming in with their catches. And that book definitely Hemingway, of course, was an author. He was a man's writer for sure. He's caught flack for that, I think, in modern literary circles because he writes from a very pretty exclusively masculine and traditionally masculine view. But he espoused those ideas of discipline and making your own luck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got quite a lot of badass like life stories. Um, there's another quote I want to bring up, and this is from The Dark Knight Rises, and I like this quote because I think it applies to a lot of guys like myself that have done this before, where they think that just all of my physical strength or like my mentality of just rage or just like any of these things will get me through whatever. All I have to do is just fight harder, work harder. And and I like this quote because it brings a lot of uh it smacks you with reality. It's telling you the truth. And the quote is, "You fight like a younger man, nothing held back, memorable but mistaken." And I like this quote because Batman in the movie, he's fighting a character that is much stronger than him. I mean, he's much bigger than him. And, he's much more prepared. He has all of these plans, and he already knows how Batman fights. He's been prepared. And Batman, who was caught off guard, hasn't been training. He hasn't been taking care of himself. He comes in here and thinks like, oh, I've never had to really worry about somebody being better than me. I'm Batman. I can handle anything. And when it comes down to this fight, and he's going in there and he's screaming and he's yelling, I'm here to fuck Bane up. Bane hits him with this quote as he's beating the shit out of him. Bane's letting him know, like, look, man, like, you think your darkness, you merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, you know. I was molded by it. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? And he really showed Batman up. He was prepared. So what I like about this quote is that when you watch this scene as a younger man and you hear this quote, you have to start thinking to yourself, how can I approach my situations differently, right? Like, how it's not always balls to the wall, like play harder, play faster music. It's not always like, oh, as an actor, I'm gonna go harder and harder and try to, be in character at work and and just go too hard and too much. Where there has to be balance. There has to be that acceptance of, like, I don't know everything. I'm not the strongest person in the room. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I can study for all hours of the night, but if I didn't have that balance of sleeping and taking care of myself and being proactive, then I failed. And that's where Bane was beating Batman. He he had all of his ducks in a row, and yeah, I love that quote.
It is good. It's like the difference between having a destination and a direction, I would say, right? Where if your goal, if you have this goal in mind that is a destination, like I want to be the biggest, I want to be the best, I want to have, be always the biggest guy in the room, lift the most weight, you're probably going to fail. Like there's one person who gets to be the best and everyone else is not, right? So that's why you always hear that advice of just become the best of whatever the thing is that you can be, and that's all you can do. And there's a bit of difficulty that goes along with that because we never really know where our own limitations lie, and you certainly have no idea where your limitations lie until you really fail, until you hit that wall that you're just like, I'm not getting over this, at least not anytime soon. And then maybe you've discovered your limitation, maybe not. But I will say, I personally believe very strongly in the spirit of continuing in the direction even when you run into the wall that you can't surmount. And I think that relates to use kind of, I don't know, I'm bringing this word from very far off, but the idea of Bushido and the way that I've heard it defined or read it defined as essentially the acceptance of death. And I think it's very crucial because everyone's going to die, everyone's going to fail. Very few people, pretty much no one is going to be the best. No one's certainly ever going to be the single best person in all categories and everything that they might aspire to. So where does that leave us? We still have aspirations. We still have the banes and the challenges, our own dreams and our own monsters to fight. But if we knew from the beginning that we would win, or we would just, where would the fun in that be? There has to be some potential that the bad guy wins.
The bad guy wins. There was this interesting podcast I was listening to this morning, and it had a Navy SEAL in it, and he was talking about how there's so many guys that come through BUDS, the basic underwater demolition training. It's got Hell Week in it and all this crazy shit, and it's some of the best of the best. I mean, those are some of like the deadliest, smartest, athletic guys that decide to serve their country through going through a program like that. And he had a really interesting thing to say because he ended up being an instructor. He mentioned that out of all of the people that come through, almost all of them are pretty much the same across the board as far as physical ability. If you made it through that far to get into buds, all of you are more than capable of being able to do the physical requirements. What he said was interesting was there's about a 3% difference, he said, in terms of somebody being really gifted. He was mentioning that some guys just run faster. You know, it could be that genetic ability of like, oh, he's got the longer legs, or maybe they've just have an incredible stamina. You know, just some guys can just lift heavier. You know, they have a better, for whatever reason, they just have a better muscle structure. Whatever it could be, that 3%, very very tiny percentage of guys that are just studs. And he mentioned that what it really came down to in such a crazy intense program was not about your physical strength. It was about your ability to understand what they're looking for, and they're constantly looking for the mindset of we, not me, but we. And no matter how tired and how beaten up and how starved and hungry and cold you are, they're always wanting to see you concerned about the guys next to you versus you yourself, and that's what they care about the most. And he was mentioning that that's the reason why a lot of guys fail out is because they don't have that that mental the mental toughness, or they don't have that kind of developed nature, or that nature to just take care of the guys next to you, because in the end what matters the most is the team. You know, like you have to be able to help your brother next to you versus you yourself. And so that was really interesting.
That is very interesting. I think that on a very fundamental biological level, that's really what people are talking about when they're talking about leadership, right? Leadership isn't about being the guy who's at the top of the building, whose ass is above everyone else sitting below them. Leadership is leading, going first. Most of the time, people don't want to go first. You're going into battle. Do you want to be the guy at the front? But that guy's the leader, right? I mean,
Yeah.
damn. But no, people don't want to think of leadership as that.
Yeah, like I imagine like a dude like on a horse, like a samurai, like and here comes that arrow. He's the first one in line, you know, like
Yeah.
all this training and talk of like, you know, being a badass, and he dies first. I don't know. It sucks.
That's where the idea of responsibility comes in. You take responsibility for yourself first so that you can also take responsibility for what you have the power to safeguard or lift up around you. And
Mm.
that's a very powerful motivation. I think that people, A, to be able to do that, to even have that motivation, you have to already be at a certain level of proficiency at whatever it is you're doing. Because if you're struggling to just get by as an individual, you're not going to have the wherewithal to think to yourself, what can I do for the people around me? So that right there is it's a dividing line between the best and the rest. But it's also something that people have interwoven in a lot of aspects of life, in the spirituality and culture. And a lot of times the caring for the people around you is something that falls under the sort of, at least in our society, which is what I'm familiar with, we think of it as feminine. It's the matriarchal force. It's the motherly, the sister that's like tenderly carrying after the well-being of other people, and it's like the man. It's the masculine energy that's charging recklessly without abandon, or in some cases operating very selfishly, self-interestedly. But both of those things are necessary ingredients for a good leader. So that means A, right, that good leaders can be men or women. But it also says that the best leaders are kind of both. They're people who can channel both of those energies.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can definitely recognize that all the time you can see leaders that definitely don't have those certain qualities, you know, unfortunately.
Can you
It's
think
about
of
to get
any
into
examples?
yeah, I can think of a few actually, but I don't even want to get into politics because then it's going to get weird, right? Um, an example of a good leader. When I think of a good leader, I think a good leader to me, Tony Romo. And I think I like Tony Romo because even though I don't know him, I don't know him at all. Um, he was given so much bullshit throughout his career. He never won a Super Bowl. And when I was growing up, I remember that Tony Romo was kind of like Superman to me. I could not wait to turn my TV on and see this guy. I mean, just he was always prepared. He always knew what he was talking about. He always mentioned in the interviews of like of the other football players that he had always looked up to, and why he plays with an injury. You know, he was playing with a broken pinky at one point every game, and he was like, I don't have time for it to heal. There's other guys that I've looked up to that have been through way worse than I have, and they still come out here and they still play. You know, and no matter how much bullshit the media would project with him, he had this one picture where he was like, he was on the floor, he had his hands on his mask like this, and it just looked like he was ashamed, just giving up. But in that moment of time in his frustration, I mean, that's a lot on one dude to be able to perform in one of the most difficult sports that is in the world. I mean, and the way he carried himself that whole time, I never saw him talk bad about anybody. I never saw him feel sorry for himself, and I loved watching him lead that team. And even today, I mean, he's a badass announcer. He's just playing golf all the time. Uh, that would be a good example of a good leader, a guy that just, even though when the pressure got bad and you could see that it was affecting him, he just he found a way to still make things work. Yeah.
Hmm. What do you think was the source of his power or his ability to do that?
Passion, probably. I mean, to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think that's just how could you not have passion and be at that level and want to play with those broken hands? He could have easily said, no, I can't play. You know, this is going to ruin my hand for the rest of my life. Um, I don't think my hand is worth, this career. But I mean, is his life. Football was everything to him, And
What does that mean to be the leader of the Dallas Cowboys? Is it about the entertainment value for the fans? Is it about selling whatever brand is advertising? Is it about
I
taking
don't know. I
a
don't.
leather oblong object and moving it 100 yards? Is that like the thing that made him
I don't.
passionate?
I don't think that he. I don't think you really choose the teams you're on. They kind of choose you. So I don't think that was out of like an egotistical kind of lifestyle. That was more of just like when he would talk about Brett Favre, because I think he was from Wisconsin too, something like that. He mentioned that he was like a Brett Favre fan when he was a kid, and all he ever wanted to do was just show that kind of like toughness that Brett Favre had. Brett Favre is fucked up right now. He's gone through some crazy injuries. I don't think he even talks very well anymore, right? And he's still kind of a younger guy. I think he's like in his 60s, his 50s. I can't remember, but he even came out of retirement, dude, and he still played in the playoffs with like the Vikings. So, I mean, he was just trying to live up to, I think, his heroes at that point. The guys he looked up to. Um, I don't think it was out of ego or anything like that.
So you think that there's an inspiration in just emulating our own heroes, that we can ourselves become heroic by emulating the people we regard so.
Emulating, I don't know. I guess you could emulate, right? I mean, but I know when you emulate things, it never comes out genuine. It's always like just it doesn't seem right because it's not you. You know, I'm sure the guys that are the best at it know that too. I
Yeah.
think they're fully aware. I can't think of any time I emulated something and it came out good. I can't.
Something like football, a sport, is a good example because for the most part, the rules don't change. In some ways, that's a good way of simplifying the chaos of life, right? That say, okay, the challenge of football isn't different between this generation of quarterbacks and the next. So even your job might be the same for the most part, but that doesn't mean that let's say Brett Favre or whatever, are they trying to be the best whatever quarterback that they admired when they were young? Or I mean, like, you're right, I'm sure they have to understand on some level that no, their job is to be better or to be the best quarterback in for their team and for each game that they play, even though it's sort of the same role, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think they just love football, man. I think it just comes down to that. That
Like you
just
love acting.
right. Yeah, yeah.
You
But
think Brett Favre drinks or he acts like he was given 10 cups of coffee whenever you put a football in his hand?
oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. And you see people like that early on too. I've definitely seen where, especially in Texas, like they'll start kids early, man. They'll start they'll start having them play early, and they're already at like quarterback summer camp like at 7 years old. They're just already getting ready for those high school years of playing quarterback. I've seen that, and some guys like they grew up with that. That's all they know, and that's all they ever want to do. You know?
So those guys who are all put in that pipeline so young, do you think that they eventually confront Bane and the quote that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, but that Bane quote I think is for guys that they really just keep muscling through things. Like I can remember a time I did shit like this. When I was younger, I was like a senior in high school, and I didn't even try acting yet. Like acting was not in my brain; it just didn't exist. Um, I wanted to be like a special operations guy. I was like, oh, right after high school, um, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a warrior. I want to be like the best of the best. And so I started getting in really good shape when I was a senior in high school, and I joined like a swim team. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna learn how to swim. I'm gonna do this. And so I remember being in swimming class and thinking like, oh, like I lift weights. You know, I'm really fit. I can swim. Like if I can run, I can swim. It's a big fucking deal. And my swim teacher constantly kept telling me, dude, you have to do the technique right. You can't just smack the water and just beat it out of its misery and try to move faster than everybody else in the pool, because I could move faster than anybody else in the pool, but there was water like splashing everywhere. I was out of breath after that that lap I took, and I would always be like, "Yeah, man, you want to race? You want to race? Yeah, I'll fucking race you. Let's go." And I would fucking win that race. But when it came down to doing the whole practice, oh my god, I was fucked up. And my teacher would keep telling me, "Dude, you slow down. Learn the technique. Be calm. You know, like you're not going to make it out of this if you don't learn how to how to, you know, take in these lessons I'm giving you, how to breathe, you know, how to be in sync. There's like a rhythm to it, you know, you put the hand out and then you turn your head, you come back, blow out, and it's a very synchronized movement of being able to do all of that and be calm. and having the stamina to be able to do that for like 2 hours, you know.
Hmm.
And the mental toughness to get in the pool like twice a day, and it's cold and it's uncomfortable, and you know, here you are treading water with like a weight, and you're just like, oh my god, like this is not running, this is not lifting weights, this is not bench press, this is its own animal.
Hmm.
And so that was a time that I can remember where I had to fight, you know, I had to fight like a wiser man, a person with more wisdom, and listen to the guys that are trying to guide me instead of trying to fight like a younger man, you know, memorable but mistaken. You know, I'm memorable, right? Because I'm winning that one race, that one lap where I'm faster than everybody else. But I'm not succeeding in the war. You know, I won the battle, not the war.
So, do you see yourself becoming the older, wiser guy who's giving that advice to younger folks?
Um, Sometimes, but I'm still too young to be, I think, considered a wise man. I don't think I deserve any kind of title like that.
You and I are kind of at that age where I feel like we're good enough at certain things that we're not beginners, but we're not the old masters yet. So we're like if to use Star Wars, right? We're past the Padawan stage, but we're not really to the master stage. We're just your like boring run of the mill Jedi Knights walking around.
A Jedi Knight, yeah, that'd be dope too. That'd be a sick reality. Um, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I've definitely, uh, I'm sure we both know enough about like our failures now to be able to sit back and say like, okay, I know what I know what this decision, I know what the outcome could be out of this decision. I know um, that we all make choices, and this choice will make you or break you. You know, so I think as far as that goes, yeah, we definitely know. You know, how to be poor, how to live poor. You know, how to uh, how to fuck up a relationship.
How
You
to
know, how
fuck up a
to
lot of things, really.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you have to know how to burn the cake to know what not to do. So,
How to ruin a relationship with a family member. You know, the list goes on like of things that we already did, we already learned from. How to get fired from a job.
yeah.
Um,
And that's all
so
good stuff to know. I think some people are better at learning from example than others. A good friend of mine we've had this discussion back and forth over the years, and she says she firmly believes that people can learn everything you need to know in life from someone else's example. You read the right books, you listen to the right talks. And I'm like, I know for me personally, there's some things I have to do myself and do wrong and fail. So, and most people I think fall somewhere along that spectrum where we can learn some things from the mistakes of others and some things we just have to do ourselves.
yeah, yeah. I think God, they always talk about like in the military. They always talk about what is your style of learning. You know, like are you an auditory? Are you a hands on? Like a what do they call a hands on? It's a
Mhm.
tactile learner. Or are you an audio? Do you hear it and then do it? And I like to think that I'm just kind of like a person that is none of those things. Like I have to I have to do it, mess up, do it again, mess up, and I like to put all of those you know failures in like a puzzle, and then understand, okay, this is how this thing works. This is how you don't mess up anymore. And it sucks because it can be such a fast paced environment in the military, and I have to be able to adapt. Sometimes I have to be able to you know realize that there's not always time to learn that way. And so that's been a struggle in itself, is being able to sit back and realize that I'm very much so not the smartest, not the most experienced, not the most not the quickest in the room. I have to sit back and really be humble and accept that this is going to be rough, and this is not this is not necessarily what I want to do with the rest of my life, but um, in order to earn and get all of those benefits and rewards out of this, I I need to adapt, and so that's been also a lesson too.
And I think you rightly see the value in just overcoming that challenge as it presents itself and becoming a slightly better version of you, stepping outside of your comfort zone, which is a skill in and of itself
Oh,
that applies to the application of many other skills.
yeah, man, definitely is in terms of like failing at things and just not being good at it. I can definitely tell you that I'm not the best uh, airman. When it comes down to, or I guess better, the best meteorologist, I guess is the better way to put that. But it's strange, man. Some guys, for whatever reason, they have that photographic memory. That's like a superpower or a gift or anything like that. That's pretty badass. When I see somebody that's able to like take a snapshot of something and just remember it, that's incredible to me. I wish I had that. Some people are just good at being able to like see weather like in a three-dimensional way, because we always see it like on a piece of paper or a slideshow or a computer screen. It's not all the time that we see these weather systems, moving and turning, and it's in 3D, and we see it happening as it's moving across, this landscape, and there's all of these different factors and theoretical science that's going on. And I mean, some guys can just really see it like a movie in their head, and I don't work that way either. So
But you'll
I don't know.
find your own way of understanding it.
I do. No, I do. It's just it's I don't know.
And
It's
even if it takes you longer to develop that, it's going to be valuable because it's going to be different than the way that the people who are watching that movie in their head see it. And sooner or later, you'll be working on a team, and there'll be some problem or some question that those guys who thought this was real easy right now can't figure out. But having whatever perspective and whatever way that you have to wire your brain to understand these things, which is going to be different, is going to be able to make sense of that problem.
Yeah, I think what it is making me realize is there's some people that are where they're meant to be, for sure. To be able to do some of the science and some of the the thinking and problem solving in weather, it's very apparent that there's some people that are truly passionate about it. I mean, I know civilians that are in our team. They've already got their 20 years. They're already retired, and they're still working in weather, still passionate about being the most accurate and sharing their knowledge and wanting to give their their best to the military and giving their best to the weather team. And these guys are like 60, 70 years old, still in the game. And so I see that, and I see that, man, there's just some people that are truly just science oriented, just like that's how their brain works, and they're where they need to be. I can see that for sure. But I'm sure there's there's so many different personalities on the floor that I'm sure we all bring something to the table. Even myself, which I don't consider myself a very science oriented, or I don't think I learn as quickly as some of the other people. Um, but I think I'm there because I can do it. I'm there because there's a purpose to it for sure. If they need somebody to be able to brief a pilot clearly, which I can do that. I can talk clearly in a microphone and talk to him and try to give him all of the information as quickly as possible. I can do that. I'm starting to get better at the investigative process of it, but like I said, there's some guys that just, for whatever fucking reason, they just They can make a 30-hour forecast and be accurate as fuck. I don't know. It's just magic.
You'll get there, man.
Well, let's see. I think we've really hit the nail on the head today. Um, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss today?
We've talked a little bit about ourselves and the journeys we've had, certain highlights and certain common lessons, I think. What do you think, based on the stuff that we've talked about today? What are the three things that someone who has had a very different life experience than either of us would benefit from taking away from all of this?
What would they benefit from our conversation today?
Yeah. What's the common ground with the people very different than us?
I think if anybody's listening and they know me, they know that I always tell everybody you have to find shit you like to do.
Hmm.
You have to, man, because otherwise you're going to be laying on your bed. You're going to have what they call anxiety, you know? And I think everybody has a level of anxiety. Everybody does think in their head. It's impossible not to do that, you know? Not to say that anxiety doesn't exist, but you would feel so much better as a person if you just got up from that bed, you picked up something. I don't know what it is. Maybe you decided to take a dance lesson. Maybe you picked up a guitar like I did. Maybe you decided to give stand up comedy a shot and you're going to the stand up comedy open mic nights and now you're taking notes, you're meeting friends, you're meeting new people, but you have to find shit you enjoy doing. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck hanging out with the same old people that don't make you happy, being in the same scenarios that you see yourself in every day. It's going to be Groundhog Day. You have to find shit you like to do.
I think that's great insight, Chris. I think that's really
Yeah.
good.
What about you?
I'm right there with you, and stick with it. You know, you find something you like and you find something you love, don't give that up easily. You got to hold on to it. You got to make sacrifices. You got to have that discipline.
Yeah,
And
man.
if you don't have that discipline, then work on getting that discipline so that when you find the thing that does make you feel like you've had 10 cups of coffee, you're prepared to put in the work to follow that path.
100%. 100%. Let's see. And you said three things that they can take away from this
If yeah,
podcast?
if you can
If we
think of
can come
some
up with
more.
three, uh, three things, I would say number two, the leadership aspect. You know, we talked about um, the differences between a good leader and a bad leader. You know, uh, some of the personality traits that we want from leaders or we want as a leader ourselves, emulating things. You know, I think if you if you aspire to be a great leader, I think it's true. You have to be a good follower as well, and being genuine and humble and understanding that, dude, you're not always going to be the strongest or the smartest in the room, and you really if you want to be a good leader, you just have to sit back and ask yourself, like, what does it truly take to be a good leader? You know, do I have these qualities yet? What am I developing? Can I take myself in that third person point of view, slow down and ask, what did I not like about what I just did? You know, what did I like about what I just did? You know, what could I have done that would have changed the outcome a little bit? Not necessarily bad or good, but what could I have learned? Because did I do this scenario like I do every time? What changes could have been made to make this different today? I think that was a big one.
Absolutely. What about number three?
Number three, let me see.
I got one.
What's up?
How do you proceed when you face failure? When you
How do you
face big
proceed?
failure, like you're not succeeding failure. It's not just like go try again, but now you hit that wall. You got that injury that you're not coming back from, or
Mm.
you encounter some obstacle where that's it. What do? Do you just turn around? Do you stop? Do you keep fighting? Go down with the ship? What does a good leader do in that situation?
I don't know. I don't even think there's so many other people other than leaders that go through that. You know, um, I can't tell you how many stories that I've just I was curious about. Like I would go online and I would read somebody's biography and I would learn like all of the hardships and all the things they did to even get where they are, and how it really did look like wherever they are today was just not going to happen. And I don't know. I think when I fail, I always do that. I always try to understand what somebody else had gone through, and what kind of solutions did they take to overcome those things. I would like to share with you one of them that really interested me. The lead singer of Tool, his name is Maynard James Keenan. He had this crazy story where he mentioned he was trying to go to art school, couldn't really pay for it. He just wanted to be like a great artist. He wanted to be painting and sculpting and pottery and all this other stuff. He had no clue he was going to be a musician ever. He had no idea. But he came to the realization that uh, nothing was really working out very well. He could barely pay for college. He was taking, shitty little part-time jobs, and he really wasn't happy. Nothing was exactly the way he pictured it. So he was like, you know what? My art career isn't going anywhere. I think I'm going to join the military. I'm going to try to earn my GI Bill and then just go on from there. He mentioned in his interview that he was actually pretty good at the military. They were offering him a scholarship to go to West Point to get a degree and become an officer and have like a crazy career in the military. Excuse me. But he said, you know what? My mind doesn't work like this. I'm a creative type. I really desire to um, move on from this. And so he gets out of the military and he comes up with a lot of hardships. This is where life starts to get really rough for him. So he decides, like, okay, I'm going to move to California. I'm going to do my art stuff here. This is the place to do it. And he mentions, like, he starts working at a pet store. He has a girlfriend, he's got a dog, he's got like all these things. And at some point, everything just falls apart. Everything is fucking awful. I think one of his parents die. His dog ran away. His girlfriend broke up with him. He lost his job. And he was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I was supposed to be this artist. I thought I had all it together. I got my GI Bill. And here I am on my hands and knees, like wondering, what the fuck am I going to do with my life, right? So he kind of, from what I understand in the interview, he kept finding things he liked to do. He found music, and that led him into a whole nother rabbit hole of possibilities. And here he is one of like the most badass fucking metal bands of all time, So he had a crazy story. I loved it. But that was like an example of hardships and
Absolutely.
overcoming
Hmm. That's good. That's good. Reminds me of something I've heard once, that NASA, a sort of personality characteristic that NASA looks for in the types of pilots that they train to go on to be astronauts. And it's that scenario of you're in a cockpit or a capsule, and you're 30,000 feet, 50,000 feet, whatever, above the ground, and all of a sudden everything just stops. The engines stop, everything fails, and you're just falling. And what do? You've got 60 seconds until you just smash into the ground. What's going through your head at that moment. And they said the ones that went on to be successful astronauts were the ones that thought, well, now I have 60 seconds to figure out how to solve this.
Yeah, yeah. Being good under pressure. That's also another skill that's really important. But man, I really appreciate you getting online and talking with me today. And I think we had a badass conversation.
Thank you,
So
Chris.
have an awesome day, and thanks for being here. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
being you.
having me.
Yeah,
Have
man.
a good one, man. Talk to you
You
later.
too. Bye.
Bye.